And so it does seem like President Trump has shown a little bit of hesitation into starting a full-on armed conflict against the Maduro regime, but it's clear that they have taken a number of different mechanisms to try and raise the temperature, hoping that they don't have to use military force to enact the change they're hoping to see.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, we seem to have more developments in Venezuela. What is the latest with the Trump administration as they try to deal with that regime?
So at this moment, we've seen roughly 20 strikes that the U.S. military has conducted on what they say are vessels that are smuggling drugs and carrying narcotics meant for America. And so these 20 strikes have resulted in the deaths of about 75 sailors. And so it's unclear exactly what were on these ships and who were killed in these strikes, given the amount of information we've received from the administration thus far. A notable development that occurred earlier this week was that the Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group arrived to the area. And so this was significant because it's the Navy's largest as well as newest carrier strike group. And so this is a lot of firepower. And so in this carrier strike group alone, we're talking about roughly 4,000 U.S. service members, which brings, according to most estimates, the total number of U.S. troops into the Western Hemisphere, the greater Caribbean area, to about 15,000. And so this is a military buildup unlike any we've seen in the Caribbean in decades. And so it really just sort of brings to bear the question of what is all this firepower for?
Right.
They've carried out 20 strikes in about 2.5 months, give or take. And so these strikes aren't happening every day. They don't often require multiple munitions. So the question is, why is all of this military might here in this theater? And so most experts believe that there is a larger game going on, a larger plot in store here, which is focused on Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. And so Maduro has been a sort of a negative impact in the region, specifically for the Trump administration, for many years dating back to the first administration.
Right.
The president, during his first term, even talked about whether or not to carry out military operations on Venezuelan soil.
Right.
And so now the question is, years later, is that what we're on the verge of seeing now? And so that part of the reason that experts believe that's what could happen now is given the amount of firepower in the region, as well as some of the comments from the president and some senior level officials since these operations began. And so we already know that President Trump has said he has approved CIA operations inside Venezuela. And so there are theories as to why the president would announce that, especially given oftentimes the CIA operates undercover and covertly. And so the president publicly declaring that he had approved this raised some question marks to experts who said this could be even a part of just a psychological operation trying to get Maduro to feel the heat, both literally and figuratively, from the strikes that have occurred in international waters, with the threat that there could be additional strikes on Venezuelan soil and that his regime itself could be the target of some of these strikes.
Right. There does seem to have been contradictory statements from the administration on whether they're actually contemplating strikes inside of Venezuela and what that would amount to if they did. But it does look a little bit like regime change is on the table here, no?
It looks like regime change is one of the goals the Trump administration wants to see, but it also looks like they're hoping that it doesn't require military force to make that happen.
Right.
And so we've seen the Trump administration increase the bounty for information that would lead to his arrest double from $25 million to $50 million. And so a part of the reason to increase that bounty is to hope that someone within his inner circle would turn on him. And so the question is that enough incentive, or will the people around him start to feel this pressure as well? Because it seems like the president has been hesitant to fully authorize military strikes on Venezuelan soil, given that it would be an act of war, and that Venezuela does have some air defense systems that could protect themselves. That being said, a lot of their systems are outdated, according to experts, and stand very little power compared to the U.S. military and the full might of the U.S. Armed Forces. That being said, it's still anything can go wrong, and as former Secretary Mark Esper said this week, it's easy to get into a war, but it can be a lot harder to get out of a war.
Right.
And so it does seem like President Trump has shown a little bit of hesitation into starting a full-on armed conflict against the Maduro regime, but it's clear that they have taken a number of different mechanisms to try and raise the temperature, hoping that they don't have to use military force to enact the change they're hoping to see.
So government spending has been very much in the headlines the last few weeks. War Secretary Pete Hegseth outlined some of his plans to take on the Defense Department, the War Department's procurement process. Been famous for $700 toilet seats and $500 hammers for going back decades. A lot of Pentagon chiefs have talked about this. What are we sort of discussing here?
So Secretary Hegseth recently announced his plan to revamp how the military goes about its procurement process. And so what they want to see is they want to see weapons go from ideas to in the hands of soldiers much faster. They are tired of waiting for a product or a weapon or a piece of equipment that could take years to come to fruition to sort of meet all of.
All right, Shalom. I'd like to start up saying, Call Halayim La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Harakak Wadash, my mom. Double honors to the elder apostles of the great millstone, double honors to our elder apostle as well. I heard one by Yashar down here in the Lions Den camp. Salutations to the Akim that are pushing the truth, sincerity, and truth. And peace and blessing to the men and women and children that believe in your name, Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. I'm Khalak Sa'an by Yashar from the Lions Den Yashar camp. And this is another Lions Den news and prophecy. It says, Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written on paper, because they are faithful and true. All right. Um, this particular topic right here, I should have done last week. I got caught up with a whole bunch of other stuff. Now I'm trying to get some of these lessons off my plate. Lord willing, this lesson to edify and serve this purpose for the hopeful elect, the ones that truly believe in the name of Yahweh by Shem Shai. All right. With that being said, I spoke about this once before, right? When I was doing lessons talking about the situation over there in South America and the Caribbean dealing with Venezuela and the United States. I talked about the cobalt, the rare mineral that's over there. Now, this Colombian president, this is the title, it says Colombian president claims Trump's Venezuela fight is about oil instead of drugs. See that? You know, it's had to be some other ulterior motive besides, what they say or what they claim to be. They're going to paint a narrative um, to make it appear that it's through moral um, values as the reason why they do the things that they do to to make an excuse on pushing their agenda. See that? They're going to paint a narrative to make it seem like this righteous is what they're doing. But in their mind, it is righteous because they have no man. Listen, there's a lesson. It was a video. I was looking at a guy. The guy was like, the West could care less about the blood they spill, just like how nobody takes a thought by stepping on a bug or drinking a glass of water. You know that, and that's sad, but it's the truth, 100% true. So in their mindset, they're righteous for what they're doing, but the scripture says otherwise, right? It says Slakia. It says Colombian president claims Trump's Venezuela fight is about oil instead of drugs. Colombian President Gustavo Petro claims this week that the United States military intervention in Venezuela is primarily a quest for oil, not a war on drugs. You see that? Petro said that the oil is at the heart of the matter regarding United States strikes on drug boats in international waters and threats to overthrow the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. It says that's a negotiation about oil. It says, I believe that the United States President Donald Trump's logic. It says Pedro said in a CNN interview published Thursday, he's not thinking about democrat democratization of Venezuela, let alone narco trafficking. Democratization. Okay, I said it wrong, but there you go. It says the Trump administration has publicized and celebrated its repeated strikes on boats believed to be transporting narcotics into the United States from Venezuela in recent months. Earlier this week, the government. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you're so 100% sure that that's what they're transporting, why not get the authorities involved and prosecute? They're trying to send a message. It ain't about no daggum drugs. It said the Trump administration has publicized and celebrated its repeated strikes on boats believed to be transporting narcotics into the United States and Venezuela in recent months. Earlier this week, the government designated a drug cartel with whom links to Maduro, the Cartel de la Sol. That's funny. It says as a foreign terrorist organization. Esau is fucking crazy. De La Soul. That's funny. All right. It says it's just about options. We plan we plan better than any organization in the world here. We want to make sure that the president has options to include during a whole lot of du- to include doing a whole lot to include doing you know somebody read that wrong. The cartel mission that were doing these as well. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said, Secretary of War. Mm. It says nothing. So nothing's off the table, but nothing's automatically on the table. Yeah. It says Pedro lamented American intervention abroad in the interview, warning that the United States cannot be considered an empire and must accept its position as one of the nations among others. Ooh. Mm. You hear that? Let me get this real quick. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. You are no longer an empire. Okay, this is Isaiah chapter 14, verse. Hmm. Um, This is Isaiah 14 and 10. It says, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? You see that? Let's read that article again. It says, Pedro lamented American intervention abroad in the interview, warning that the United States cannot be considered an empire and must accept its position as one of all of the nations among others. Have thou become like unto us? You see that? You see how Yahweh Shema Shah is bringing this place down, right? It says Colombia recalled its U.S. ambassador back to uh, Bogota last month following a spat with the Trump administration and accusations from the White House that Pedro was engaged in the same narco trafficking as Maduro. See, they don't chat, man. President Gustavo Pedro of Colombia is an illegal drug leader, strongly encouraging the massive production of drugs in big and small fields all over Colombia, Trump wrote on True Social. It has become the biggest business in Colombia by far, and Pedro does nothing to stop it. Despite large scale payments and subsidies from the United States that are nothing more than a long-term rip-off of America. So, well, he just knows this for a fact that he's. Who knows if they are or if they aren't? You know what I'm saying? But if America really wanted to stop drugs from coming in, they could stop it. They don't want to. All right. It says Senate Democrats have filed a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi in Hexpet demanding the release of classified information related to the strikes on Venezuelan boats. They ain't gonna get it. It says few decisions are more con- consequential for a democracy than the use of lethal force. We therefore believe that the declassification of public release of this important document would enhance transparency and the use of deadly force by our nation's military and is necessary to ensure Congress and the American people are fully informed of the legal justification supporting these strikes, the senator wrote. Right. You know? Give the evidence that says that you have to use deadly force. To give the evidence that justifies you having to use deadly force on these people. You know, these still are human beings that they're killing. And they're celebrating killing these people. America is so fucking bloodthirsty that. Let me read this last part. It said Trump and his administration have maintained that all boats sunk by the military have been operating in cooperation with drug cartels, and that the United States is in a non-international armed conflict with the narco gangs. All right, but the gang body count is at zero. They ain't no Americans got killed. You know what I'm saying? This it's America racking up all the scores, and the crazy part about it is that they're in their mind what they're doing is righteous. See that? If somebody is doing something and they don't see any wrong in it, there's nothing you can do to convince them because they don't feel like you're right. They're justified in all their actions. You see that? This is Habakkuk 2:4. It says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." Right? See that? All right, upright, to be smooth, to be lofty, to be just, to go straight. See that? So that's not what he's doing in his mind. He's lifted up in his mind as what he's doing is lawful, but it's not. It's not. It said, yea, also because he transgresses by wine, and those are those narratives and philosophies that he tries to push, make America great again and justifying the bloodshed that they shed on throughout the earth. It says, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desires as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people, man. See that? This Micah 2:2, it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence. See, they're trying to take over that area about that oil and those other natural resources. They had to gain total control. It says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away, so that so they oppress a man of his house, even a man and his heritage, man. See that? Mm. So let me see. Let me get this real quick. This is Nahum 3:1. It says, woe to the bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery, and the prey departeth not. Everybody's a prey to America. But the prey that has departed not are Yahweh Shem Shai's precious jewels. Us, the children of Israel. All right. So it says, woe to the bloody city. As a matter of fact, let me go back one. Let me go back one. Of course, it was talking about Nineveh on that one, but um, um, all the America is spiritual Nineveh today. You know, what am I looking for? Real quick. Uh, Let me go back to Habakkuk real quick. But yeah, all the wickedness that America does on the earth, they're justified. They're gonna paint some sort of narrative to justify it, But all of this is gonna be a witness against them. This is Habakkuk chapter uh 2:7. It says, "Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them?" Meaning meaning America's going to be a spoil to these other nations, man, because they've done all the spoiling and taking lands by violence. It's gonna what goes around comes around. What you sow on the earth, you're gonna reap. Verse 8 it says, "Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of man's blood, and for the violence of the land of the city and of all that dwell therein." You see that? It says, "Woe to him that coveteth an evil covenant to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil." But what did he say? America has to accept that they just like everybody else. Matter of fact, let me go back to it. Where he said that. What he said it that. You know. Where is it? Okay, yeah, it says the United States cannot be considered an empire and must accept its position as one of the nations among others. Just regular, But they're doing all this wickedness in the earth, like trying to put fear on everybody to set themselves on high so they don't have to be and suffer like the other nations. But they're not going to be able to get around it because this is all being set up and designed by Yahweh Shem Shai. It says, Habakkuk chapter 2:9 again, it says, "Woe to him that covet in evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he might be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast considered shame to thy house by cutting off many people and have sinned against thy soul." Right, but he doesn't see it. He's so puffed up with pride, he can't even see it because he sees that he doesn't feel like he's doing anything wrong. That's America I'm talking about. Esau, really. "For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it." So everything that they have set up on this earth, all the memorials that they have, all the agendas that they're pushing, are going to be a witness crying out against this devil. And they're going to be rectified and established when Yahweh Shai shows up. And he ain't gonna be able to say, "Oh, it wasn't me." No, it's gonna point all roads and fingers gonna lead to Esau. It says, "Woe to him," verse 12, it says, "Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establish a city with iniquity." And that's how America was established, man. And that's the only thing that Esau knows how to do is iniquity. Said, for the mystery of iniquity do have already worked. Violent deeds of justice, injustice. See that? So, yeah, I said it before when this whole thing first started that it was probably some sort of natural resources, or like we found out about the cobalt, or what they call the blue gold or whatever. And now the president of Colombia is saying that it's oil that Trump is after. And it very well may be, because these Saudi princes aren't really, you know what I'm saying, dealing with America like that. You feel me? So, Lord, when this lesson edify and serve the purpose for the hope elect, the ones that truly believe in the name Yahweh by Shem Shai, with that, I like to call Halayim like Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai, by Shem Harakak Wadash, my month. Double honors to the other apostles, the great millstone, double honors to our elder apostles as well, I heard one by Yashar Allah. Down here in the lines in the camp, shout salutations to the Akim that are pushing the truth, sincerity, and truth, and peace and blessing to the men and women of truth that believe in the name Yahweh by Shem Shai. Shalom.